Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video where we're going to dive into another issue that I'm facing on the Bentley Arnage T. One of the other problems I've got is around, we've got a check engine light on the car, and also on the diagnostics computer, it's showing it's showing a misfire in cylinder 5 and cylinder 6. So when I purchased the car, and if you haven't seen those videos, you need to go back and watch some of these. I'll drop some links in the description below. It was a barely running car. It had a major oil leak from the rear main seal, and there was just a whole load of other problems. But when I bought it, I thought, okay, I'm going to give it a major service. So there was a number of things that I did, and then, this particular problem with the check engine light, it wasn't going away. So some of these things we've already done, and I'll take you through a list. There's a list of about 8 or 10 things you can do in order to fix a check engine light or an engine misfire. So let's go through that list, and I'll tell you what we've done so far and what kind of remains. So with regards to a misfire, I mean, first thing to check is probably to change the MAF air sensors, or to have a look at that. So MAF is the mass airflow sensors. They're the sensors that fit at the front of the car where the air intake comes in, so where the air filter is. Usually the air gets filtered and then goes through the mass sensor, and then goes into the engine. And what the sensor does is it calculates how much air is coming into the engine, and the reason for that, the reason why that's important, is because it needs to calculate how much petrol or diesel to then put into the engine as well. So it's very important, and if that falls out of sync, then you get a misfire. So in my case, my car's got 2 of these sensors, and I changed both of them with original parts as well. So the original Bosch parts. So I know that my sensors are fine, but we kind of had to do that to eliminate the issue. Another issue that it could be is spark plugs. So if your spark plugs are not the right type, if they're not gapped properly, if they haven't been changed in a while, you would need to pull the spark plugs and have a look at that. Now, when you pull them, you need to have a look at them as well. Look at the colouring, see if they're dark, light, whatever, and make sure that they're all consistent. Because if they're not consistent, then you will have potential misfires on certain cylinders. Now, on my car, because I just got it, you just had a major service done. It's we know that the spark plugs are all fine. So again, that's kind of been eliminated. But you should check that on your car. It's also a service item anyway, so again, that's something that you should be changing on a fairly regular basis, depending on the service schedule of your car. The third thing to check is the injectors. Now, this is, I think, the problem with my car. And one of the reasons why I think it's the problem with my car is because what seems to have happened recently is it's developed a fuel smell. You can smell petrol when you start up the car. Now, if the injectors are not working properly, then what can happen is, those when you start up your car, before you start it, you put it onto ignition. I think what it does is it fills up the cylinder with petrol, or something of those sorts of lines. So, yeah, so that could well be a problem. That's a sort of indicative that it's a injector related problem. So I was going to change the injectors on my car, and I didn't do it. Instead, we changed the injector rings, and now I'm going to have to change all 8 injectors, and probably the rings again. The rings aren't too expensive, but the injectors are. I could just change it on cylinders 5 and 6, but the problem with that is that it takes quite a lot of effort to get into that section of the engine. You've got to take off the intercooler, you've got to take off the it's air intake manifolds, everything. So if you're going to go to that hassle of getting down into that part of the engine, you might as well just change all 8 injectors, and then that also future-proofs it, so that you don't have that problem in the future. Chances are the injectors on these are the original ones, so I don't really want to take the risk. So I'll be changing all 8 of those, and hopefully that sorts out my problem. What else could it be? Again, HT leads, that's another one. Again, in my car we've changed it, so I know it's not that. So we've kind of eliminated that. Another problem it could be is air seeping into the system after the mass airflow sensor. So if that basically the reason why that's a problem is because your airflow sensor is sensing the air coming into the engine through the filter. You then are introducing additional air into the system, which the computers are not taking into account of. So it's not then supplying enough petrol, depending on what air is coming in. So the way that you would want to check that is you would want to, and I don't know if you would probably, I think it would be water possibly, you would spray where the air intake is, and if your revs change when you're spraying, that's your problem. So that's then a potential problem. Number 7 would be to check if it's something fuel related. So one way to check is you could close the fuel return hoses and see if that makes a difference. It's possible that it is fuel related. So that's another thing to check. It may be something to do with the fuel pumps, for example. The fuel filters. I mean, I know I've already changed my fuel filter, and I think I've changed my fuel pump as well. So it's, I know in my case that's not the case, but it could well be fuel related. Next one would be around a loose or faulty gas tank cap. So where you pour the fuel into the car, actually checking that, making sure that the seal on that is all good. You don't want air going into the fuel tank whilst you're driving the car. And it might just be a cheap and low cost option to just change the cap itself. On most cars it's not going to cost a lot. On a Bentley it will, but on most cars it won't. So there's that to check. It could well be a faulty O2 sensor. It is a service item on the Bentley, so it's something that you would need to sort of do anyway. But a lot of people don't do it. They kind of wait till a problem occurs and then they do it. And that's the reason why Bentleys are so expensive to maintain, because a lot of the work is actually preventative. So it is designed to prevent these kind of issues coming up at a later stage. It's just that the parts are so damn expensive, that's the only problem. So the O2 sensor might be the actual problem itself. So another thing it could be is a dirty or clogged catalytic converter, again related to the exhaust. So that's something to, you would need to inspect that to be sure, but that's always something to look at. It could be something to do with the battery of the car as well. So in my case, my car, the Arnage, has 2 batteries, one for starter and one for all of the electrics in the car. And I've changed both of those on the car itself. So I'm pretty confident that that's not my issue. But the battery itself, I mean, it has been known that if the battery is not fully charged up, that can cause these kind of problems as well. Kind of linked to that, you'd probably want to also check the alternator voltage outputs as well. Make sure that they're all as expected. So, and again, you'd have to refer to your manual to see what the level it should be. But yeah, that's probably something you want to do Some cars do have a on the actual dash itself, they do have a voltage dial. Some of the Bentley Arnages have it as well, but yeah, again, I don't think that is a problem with my car. And then the only final thing is that it could be something electrically related, so some sort of electrical problem, maybe something to do with some of the cables, some, you know, to do with the ECUs, you know, that sort of thing can also trigger misfires and engine warning lights as well. And then if all of those things have been exhausted, then it is mechanical, and that probably means maybe your gaskets are seeping through. There's some sort of issue there, but it will probably mean opening up the engine and having a look, and yeah, then you'll start talking about a lot more money. That's why it's best to go through that process of you know, eliminating other potential causes first before you actually get down to this. So anyhow, that is those are sort of the 8 different things that you can do, you know, to try and resolve that and try and figure out what the actual issue is. I hope you found that useful. If you did, then please do subscribe. We've got more videos coming out on how to diagnose and resolve some of these issues, and they're not specifically related to the Bentley Arnage. They are actually related to all types of vehicles, and so if you're facing this issue, you can go through exactly the same steps to try and resolve it on your car. So I hope you found that all useful. Lots of different things for you to look at there, but I've tried to put together a real comprehensive list of all the things that we've been looking at on our car, and you know, what just generally I've done in the past as well. So leave your comments in the comment section down below. Let us know what you think. If there's any additional ones that you do, then yeah, share it with us for sure. Thanks very much, and I shall catch you next time.